Hey guys, this is Marc Owings, and I'm your host for the Unbridled Life Podcast, where we have real, raw, and unreligious conversation to encourage and challenge men and women in their daily lives. Welcome to the Unbridled Life Podcast. I say every week that I'm excited, that I'm pumped, but I'm honored, whatever the word is, but I have a family member on today, and our whole family is just sharing their story, and I actually have my daughter in love, and I call her my daughter. Her name is Kayla Christine Owings, and we're super excited about this daughter in our life and just this incredible story. So Kayla, thanks for coming on the Unbridled Life Podcast.
Of course, I'm so excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Everybody's nervous. I get nervous every single time that I'm on here, and we're going to be sharing your story, and you want to stick around for this. This is a trauma story and a victory story, a story of how someone gets traumatized and comes out of those ashes of feeling completely burned down, and God bringing them to a place out of the desert into streams in the wasteland, and God actually brings those streams to Kayla in the story. So Kayla, tell us a little bit. I know everything about you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, tell them a little bit about you.
Well, I am married, obviously, to your son, Tucker.
Whoop.
Yeah, we've been married for 2 years, and we have a little sweet baby girl, Lakely Drew.
Most beautiful woman in
So
the world.
cute. And I don't know, she just turned a year old, so we're experiencing all of the baby is mobile phase and baby's throwing temper tantrum phases and all of those fun things, and now we're waiting for her to walk, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're having a great time.
So she was 3 weeks preemie.
Yes.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know it, this little girl, you're going to be seeing pictures all throughout this podcast. Why? Because I can control that, and I love her, and the girl that does our social media is her. So, but it's really, y'all have gone through a season in the last, 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Tucker ripped his knee out, bucket tear, and then you have kind of an emergency gallbladder surgery.
Oh, yeah.
And get that, and so you couldn't carry her, and we had the we had the privilege between her parents and us. We just got to share them for about 2 weeks, and shout out to all the grandparents on both sides. So it's been incredible. So let's take this journey back to you. I guess you and Tucker met in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
our junior year we had a class together.
So tell me about that.
Yes, so I thought he was the cutest boy in the entire world, of course, but I had a boyfriend at the time, so we didn't really get to date or have a large connection. We sat right next to each other in English class, actually.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, we did. And even like halfway through the class, my English teacher, Coach Belcher, he was like, okay, y'all are all talking too much. My best friend Katie was also in the class, so he was like, y'all are talking too much. We need to separate you guys. So he separated me and Tucker to sit right next to each other. So,
Thank you, Coach Belcher. Shout out to Coach Belcher,
Yeah.
and the teacher who did the right thing, the righteous thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, we planned on going on a date when my boyfriend at the time and I had broken up and we weren't together for a while. So we were gonna go on a date, and then I ditched him and I didn't go.
Why didn't you show up?
Because, well, backstory, I had already met with you. Yes, so we had met. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But me and you had met, and then I put 2 and 2 together and realized that you were Tucker's dad.
So you didn't want to date the preacher boy?
No, it wasn't that.
Yeah, I knew some things that Tucker didn't know yet, and so y'all are friends. Graduate. Tucker goes to the University of Arkansas. And you go up and see him, I guess, with some friends. Y'all started connecting.
Yes.
And you go up and see Tucker. And this is the fascinating story for me. I love this part of it. I love the way my son's built. I'm going to crawl the way through this.
Me too.
So tell us about, you go up and see Tucker. You're in his room. And what's happening in the room? No, it's not going where you think.
I just remember, I had just gotten to Arkansas. I brought my dog there. We both had a dog named Abby. So we were, like, trying to keep our dogs separated. Neither of them liked other dogs. And I just remember, like, I sat on the ground, crisscross applesauce, and he sat next to me. And we just started getting very, very personal with our stories. We both shared a lot together about what had happened to both of us, or what traumas both of us had gone through, or mainly me. So yeah, I think I just sat down and I was like, I know what your parents, and I talked about, and I just want to share it now so that we don't have to talk about it in the future.
Didn't Tucker say something like, I want you to meet my mom and dad?
Yeah.
And then you had to tell him, I've already met your mom and dad.
Yeah, and I went through all of high school without him knowing that we had ever met, because obviously I didn't want to share that with everyone. And so yeah, I was like, I've already met them, and that started a whole episode of questions.
Yeah.
So
for sure. So what was in sharing, and I love that. It's not a big makeout session. Y'all's first time of intimacy together was just sharing your hearts, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. And so what was the hardest thing in that conversation that you had to share with Tucker?
Well, I shared with him that I was sexually molested from probably the age of 4. I don't really know the age. As young as I could remember, my youngest memories, until I was probably a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yes, boom.
Wow. Mic drop. And so how did Tucker handle that?
He was the most comforting, sweet, and just connective person I had ever talked to about it. My family knew. I had recent boyfriends, they knew. Some of my friends know, not all of them. But he was a listener, and he took every second of our conversation to listen to every word that I had to say. And he helped walk me through it and a lot of my emotions. Seriously, in the first time that we ever hung out, I shared more with him than I've probably shared with anyone in my entire life. So, very vulnerable, but...
Well, that's the family he grew up in, so, the one thing I guess that worked out for Tucker growing up in a preacher's kid is, he knew, and I still can't believe when I see preacher's kid, I'm thinking, who preacher are they talking about? Oh, it's me. But, he had been trained because of Fully Alive to, and heard stories. And did he ask a lot of questions? A lot of questions, yes. But they were all the right questions. I never felt like I had to have like an awkward moment of, well, this happened and this. It was just question after question, but the best communication in the most comforting way. Wow. Mm-hmm. Did Tucker ever treat you like broken goods or tainted goods? No, not at all. Did you feel like you were broken and tainted? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I didn't see why. So as we were talking through this podcast, one of the things she shared, I was like, Kayla, how did you know that you were 4? And she said, well, when this finally comes out, there is a organization that helps kids that have been through that process start walking back and finding a timeline, because even my brother and I both experienced it. So, not to the degree that you did, but I think trauma's trauma. And we all have to walk through that journey, and the first thing we have to do is face it, timeline it, start getting some details, and that's part of our healing. That's part of what you were going through. When is the age, I'm just curious, when is the age that you recognize that you start consciously going, this isn't healthy, this isn't right, I don't know what to do? Do you have a time frame? My best guess is around like 7 or 8. I distinctly remember the first day that I was like, okay, this isn't right, So growing up, as it's happening, you don't know that it's wrong. You're 4 years old, right? You're 4, 5, 6, however old I was. I didn't know this is wrong. I thought this is someone that I'm really close with, and I thought this is love. This is normal. This is, why does this hurt? Why is, right. I had all of those feelings, but yeah, I think I was around 7 or 8, and distinctly
this is a very graphic description of how I remember it, but I remember everything hurting. I remember laying on the couch and him being with me. And then I remember hurting really bad. I ran to the bathroom because I wanted to go hide from him. That was my thing to do, was I would run and hide in a corner. So this time I ran to the bathroom, locked myself in the bathroom, and I looked down at the toilet and in my underwear, and I had blood everywhere. And that's like the core memory of like the day that I was like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't love. This isn't normal.
No, it's not in a little kid's mind.
Yeah.
You know, learning to ride a bike hurts.
Yeah.
And we just say, suck it up. You know, learning to walk hurts. And so the first thing I want to say is incredible parents. Kayla's parents are divorced and both remarried, incredible people. I want to shout out to Chris and Gina and to Sharon and Corey. No, it was not them. And I want to make that very clear. And as a parent, there's a whole kind of trauma and guilt that happens. And I've sat down with her dad and stepmom and have just been around her biological mom, Sharon. And so you never know how to describe all of this. She got two sets of parents and they love her so much. But one of the things that, you know, that Chris and I've talked a lot about, just the guilt of like, how can I miss that? How can I not see that? How do I not do the basic thing of protecting? And this is where I want to get the word out. And I was hyper vigilant with my kids because it had happened to me, and you're going to be hyper vigilant.
Absolutely.
Good luck
Yeah.
for the person who even tries to do that. But you don't know what you don't know, and there's no shame on them or guilt that is assigned to them because there's forgiveness in all of it. And so I just want to shout out and make sure people know that it was someone outside of that circle, and if you want to name that, that's yours. But as you're going through this process and that first time, you know, I think people who haven't been through this, it's just like, why didn't you tell someone?
Yeah.
What was that little girl thinking?
Oh my gosh, so you just wouldn't imagine that a little girl would have so much awareness of, if I tell someone, what's going to happen to my family? My grandma still, to this day, doesn't have the best health. And it was, well, now I'm spilling the beans, it was my step-grandfather that had molested me. But my grandma hadn't had the best health. She still doesn't. She hadn't worked in years. I just automatically was like, if I tell my parents, what is this going to do? Am I never going to see my grandma again? Like, and am I going to break my whole family apart? And what's going to happen? So I think it just had a lot of pressure on myself to hold my family together at such a young age. So I held it in until I couldn't hold it in anymore.
So that's what little kids do, is they take responsibility. We see that with divorce, that so many times in a divorce, kids will automatically think it's their fault, and they'll take responsibility for it because they're part of this, but they don't understand and they can't see the slices that this is unhealthy. And but you know, here Leslie and we're on in Haslett, and it's just strange. Y'all almost moved into our neighborhood as little kids.
Yes, we did. My dad and mom looked at a piece of land in Hill's neighborhood.
And so, but you don't. And it's like God just maneuvers this thing around. Y'all end up in the same high school. Tucker was going to Christian school, and he just, you know, I'd ask him the whole time, you know, Tucker, just trust me to navigate your education. And I wanted him in a Christian school, and he was going to Liberty, and there were some really good people at Liberty, but there were some hard things at Liberty and, you know, with Christian schools. And he came to me and just said, Dad, will you trust me? And I said, of course I will. And he said, I want to go to a public school, and I want to finish out. Well, I was scared because I knew what I did in public school, and I was thinking, oh God, you know, his last name and what's running through his veins. I'm like, girls, drugs, all of it. And he did incredible through that, but we are praying, since he's a little boy, for this girl that's going to be his wife. How Kayla and I met, wow, was on a prophetic word, not in a church. Leslie and I were out shopping in Roanoke, your stepmom Gina, and I hate using that word because she loves her just like her other mom loves her. But we walked into this shop and I got a prophetic word for your dad and mom. And I said it to him, and I can't remember what it was, but they were asking, how could you know that? And I said, well, I don't know it. I just know God gave me the answer, and it looks like I'm really smart, but this is God speaking to you. And I remember your dad looking at me and said, would you be willing to talk to my daughter? She's up here. And I said, absolutely. And I didn't even know this whole time. I thought it was just me that went back. But it was actually, she shared, no, it was you and Leslie. And I have her at like 12. But she's not. She's 16. But in my little mind, I was talking to a little girl. And when I walked back into this area, that it was a little pub table, I don't remember that. And where we have clothes all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
clothing boutique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A boutique shop. And I just knew immediately when I saw her, I knew what had happened. And I didn't know, how am I supposed to communicate to this little girl, this little sweet 16-year-old, hey, I already know. So we just started talking, and I think I said, hey, there were some things that happened when I was a little boy that I didn't want to tell anyone, and I felt responsible for it, but I was really ashamed, and I don't feel very good about it when I was little. Do you know what that feels like? And I remember you just looking at me, shaking your head, yes. And I said, yeah. As a matter of fact, someone touched me in an inappropriate place, and you just started shaking your head. And I think I said, did you get touched here? And I pointed to my shoulder, and you shook your little head. No. Elbow? No. And I said, can you point where? And you just looked down to the private place.
Yeah.
And I knew, and so we went and talked to their parents and just started walking this process out together. And I think they did an incredible job. Just it's a lot. It's a lot to go through. It's a lot to walk out. There's no handbook out here of go to step A, step B, step C, step this, and so just props to both sides of the family. At that moment when you met me, how did you feel?
Oh, I was completely shut down. I mean, I remember my dad and stepmom would ask me questions, and I would just stare at them, just blankly stare. So I can only imagine when I met you, I was like, why are my parents making me talk to this guy? Who is this guy?
This old bald guy.
Yeah, and I think I was just so shut down that, nothing could have really gotten to me, nothing could have gone through to me, but yeah, it was a lot, but it was meant to be, so.
So I would have these conversations, and I've had them my whole entire life, got to just set up divine appointments for people, but I would come home and share with my kids, here's the story I heard today, and Tucker remembers the story, and he put two and two together when y'all are crisscross applesauce, and you started putting it together and where you were, and you started describing, he's like, oh my gosh, you're the...
Yeah.
That's my dad, and my dad was with you, so I'd already met you, and little do we all know you're going to be our daughter-in-law, and I hate even saying that. She's my daughter forever, and so I guess as you go through this, do you really have a relationship with Jesus yet?
No.
No.
I don't. No.
So tell us about, how did you even come to get connected with the Lord to really receive all that He wanted to give you already?
Well, another story with Tucker. He, when we first started even talking, hanging out, that was always a really big question for him, is what my relationship was with the Lord, if I had a relationship. And it's not that I didn't believe in God or that I didn't want to. I didn't know how to. That just wasn't. I wasn't raised in it. I wasn't educated in it. And I think I had a really hard time growing up thinking, why is, like, if God is real and he's here for me and all these people love him, like, why is he not protecting me? Why am I praying? I remember praying at night. I didn't know how to pray, but I was doing it. Praying at night that he would stop the abuse and that, all of this would come to an end, and it didn't until, we made it come to an end. So that was how I felt growing up. But then when Tucker and I connected, he just little by little started encouraging me to dive into the Word and to just learn about the Lord and learn about his love and his grace. And Tucker told me, listen, we're in a broken world. This is not the God that I know. Our God would not, he didn't do this. He didn't cause this. The enemy came to get every piece of your joy, and this was him. This wasn't the Lord. So until I heard those words from Tucker, I didn't know what to believe or what to feel. So anyways, Tucker started, slowly educating me, slowly throwing me into going to church with his family when he moved back home. I'll never forget that first time.
I took Kayla to a highly charismatic church, and I didn't do a great job of prepping her what we were walking into, and it was a lot for her.
It was a lot.
But we got to go and sit down as a family and just have lunch and talk through things in real ways. We say it all with all kinds of adjectives and just are real about it. And so when you were telling me before, it all kind of came to a head after watching The Passion of Christ.
Yes, I remember we weren't even dating yet. We were at my apartment in Roanoke, and Tucker was like, I want you to watch this movie because it will show you more than I can ever explain to you. It's the best movie ever. So I was like, okay. Really wasn't a movie girl. Still I'm working on it, honestly.
We're working on you because we're movie people.
Yeah. So I remember sitting and watching The Passion with Tucker, and I was bawling my eyes out. Like, this was the first moment that I was like, our God is so good. He loves us, and he did all of this for us. And at that moment, I just remember Tucker and I having a conversation, and he being like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I couldn't wait to be saved. And at that moment, Tucker was like, are you comfortable with me walking you through this? And he walked me through salvation, and in my apartment watching this movie. Like, I'll never forget it.
Oh my gosh. And we're on the sidelines getting conversations as they walk through this, and it's incredible. It's wild how God divinely put all this together and put you and Tucker together, and we just watched y'all come together first just in emotions and heart, and then being at y'all's wedding, and just probably the best wedding I've ever been to. Second one coming when Ellie Grace gets married, but it was just unbelievable watching and sitting back. And I think that's the frustrating thing for all of us is the story. And you know what God's done. You know where you had been and the trauma you'd been through. As a matter of fact, you had experienced epilepsy. And so tell us a little bit about that, when that started, and maybe how God walked you out of that.
Yeah, so I think started having seizures. The first one I ever had was around 21 years old. I was still dealing a lot with my trauma, but I didn't really have anyone to talk to. So in high school, I had gone through all the counselors and done all the things and just everything that everyone recommended me to do. And then kind of at that 21 phase, I'm like living with my boyfriend, not really having anyone to talk to. My parents we were close, but we were nothing like we are now. And I was having seizure after seizure after seizure, going to the neurologist. No one could figure out what was wrong with me. They set up testing. I had like 72 wires placed all over my head, and they watched me on camera for like 48 hours straight. And every time I would feel a seizure coming on, I would press a button, and they would record it, try to figure out what was going on. And I dealt with those until me and you and Leslie and Tucker were all sitting in the living room one day, and I don't know do you remember if like the day before I had one, or
you did?
It's very common, or very, very recent.
We got to witness what would happen to her.
Yeah.
And she'd be out of it. And I think at that point I started asking the Lord, and I think Leslie and I just said, Kayla, we think this is tied to this trauma. And we do a thing that's called theophostic, just means God and light, and taking someone back to some of those worst memories and allowing them to ask, Jesus, where were you when this was going on? And you allowed us to do that with you. And have you had any more seizures?
No.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to do is educate people. I'm not saying ever epileptic. I know that there are people out there that think epilepsy is a demon. Probably not. Most of the time, I think it can be physical, but I think a lot of times it can be emotional, and psychology is not caught up with the truth and love and the Word of Christ, that when we bring light into a dark area, the enemy and the lies, the shame and the guilt, that's just too much for a little girl trapped, all these little memories inside of you, where light comes in. And it wasn't like Kayla just got fixed all at once. Are you still walking that process out?
Absolutely, every single day.
Tell us, like, how did this attack, where were the areas, knowing that you went through this, what were the areas that this trauma spoke lies to you, and what were they?
Oh, the main one, and I know it's the one that I definitely got to deal with the most, is being a mom. I was so afraid of being a mom. I thought, one, that I wouldn't be able to ever get pregnant because I was molested. I thought that my body was broken and that it would never happen to me, that that I wouldn't be able to ever have a kid. Sorry.
Don't need to be.
But not only that, I think I was just afraid that once I was able to be a mom, that I would be such a helicopter mom, which I probably will be, but in different ways.
I think you'll be a jet fighter.
Yeah. Well,
you
are. Absolutely. But I think there were just a lot of lies in my head that I wasn't worthy of being a mom. I wasn't worthy of even maybe being a wife. I mean, I just had a lot of those lies being told to me of, objectifying myself, of sex is love, and there's a lot that goes with it, but the main one is becoming a mother, and that I wouldn't be capable of raising a child because of what happened to me.
Wow. It's so insidious how the enemy comes in and speaks lies to us based upon our trauma and then tags it all to us. And if you're out there listening to this, you don't have to identify with what she went through, but we all have traumas in our life. And, you've got the small, medium, or big. Well, at that point, it doesn't matter how big the trauma is, the lie gets sunk and the seed gets planted in the garden of our mind. And we start thinking things like, I'm not worthy to be a mom, I'm not worthy to be a wife. Did you feel very pretty?
Not at all. No, I had no self-worth at all. So, yeah.
And God, Leslie and I, sitting back watching her and Tucker walk this journey out. And it's been a long journey. You and Tucker dated for 2 years?
A little over a year before we got engaged.
Okay, a little over a year. 2 years.
Yes.
Been married. Just this in 3 years, we look at the confidence that God's put in you. Mm-hmm. You're a business owner. You handle social media. You're an entrepreneur. She's probably more like me than my son is in a lot of ways. Kayla and I have the same personality, strong personalities, strong passions, and strong desires for injustice. You don't want to mess with Kayla when it comes to injustice. She will fight for the broken. And I can hear people like, man, I can't believe that your family just keeps sharing all of your stories. Like, what would you say to people that is like, man, these are things that you don't tell anyone?
If I didn't ever tell anyone, then I would continue to feel all of these feelings of I'm not beautiful, I'm not worthy. And the same thing to what if I had a kid and I didn't deal with any of my trauma. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't want that to be passed down to her. I just want to get all of this out. I want to be set free from it. And if I can help someone else be set free from it by sharing my story, by being uncomfortable, like I am so uncomfortable,
Get it.
Then I'll do it. I mean, I just want other women, men, it happens to everyone that go through this, to know that you're definitely not alone, that it's not easy to talk about, but you're so much more worthy than the enemy is making you feel.
Come on. I love it. My little preacher girl. First platform, and I'm going to watch her continue to do that. I would tell people out there, I think it's not working the way that most Americans think, and that's just keep it quiet. It's not just American. Hondurans, Guatemalans. I think one of the things that we do mission work in Honduras, and mostly from a funding standpoint now. But when I started that, I remember walking into the room and then getting the feeling, I think every pastor's wife in here has been molested and no one's ever talked about it. And Leslie and I started sharing. And when we gave them the room, every woman in there started weeping. And they said, we didn't know who to tell. We didn't even know if it was right to tell. We just hid it away as if it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And then watching the years of going back and watching these women blossom in their kids and awareness of predators. And that's my biggest thing, is awareness. We have neighbors across the street from us, and the first things that I said to them, hey, if we can ever help with your kids, and we'd be willing to get a background check. And they looked at me so funny. And I told them, I said, you never know who's across the street from you. And just because I seem like a nice guy, it's your job to check it out. And that's why I tell every kid, if Kayla ever came to me when her daughter's 10 and just said, I want you to take a lie detector test. I want to make sure. I would not be offended about that. I'd be honored. Because I think that we can't be paranoid, but I think we've got to be cautious, and we've got to watch what's going on, and we've got to do a better job protecting our kids. And you're doing that. Lakely is 1 year old, and you're going to blink, and she's going to be 5, and then you're going to blink again, and she's going to be 10.
I'm not ready.
Yeah, it's just all. You take it all in. Kayla, what would you say to someone who's out there, like, what's the first step? I've been through this. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do. I don't know who's safe. What would be a good first step?
That's a hard one. I mean, I think that sharing with anyone that you trust, whether it's a mom, a dad, a best friend, a sister, a random guy that you meet at your parents' boutique, just find someone that you can put trust into. I mean, anyone, if you go to church, tell someone at your church, see if there's some resources out there for you. Message me. I mean, send me a message. I'll walk you through it. Talk to Marc. But my biggest thing is just don't be afraid to tell someone. Like, just let it out, you'll feel so much weight lifted off your shoulders.
Oh, no doubt. I think we're only as sick as our secret. That's in our book, The Original Sanctuary. That's obviously what we do on Fully Alive as we walk people through obstacles, not just this, any obstacle. But, we have a marriage conference. It's all about taking steps. And so I think that's the thing that's been fun as a dad, a preacher, a father-in-law, of watching you grow. And you are the strongest mom, the best wife. I did not see you coming, but you're better than I could have hoped, thought, or imagined, Kayla, when you showed up into Tucker's life. And I feel so connected to you. It's hard to connect with people that haven't experienced hard things, and I'm grateful for them. But I think we share that, and Leslie shares that with you. I think one of the things that I love the most is listening to her and Leslie on the phone and giggle and cackle, and you can't tell it, she's not doing it right now, but she's very comical. She's very funny. She's very spontaneous, and she causes my wife and I just to cry laughing. And it's just, you're an incredible wife, incredible mom, incredible daughter-in-law, all of the above, kisses and love all the way to the top. And anything else you want to share? Was this as hard as you thought it would be?
Honestly, no. Like, once we started talking, I feel a lot better. I think the biggest thing for me is just because this happened to me it didn't define me, right? It took me so long to figure it out. It didn't define me. It didn't ruin my life as much as it wanted to. It didn't ruin my life at all. Actually, it made it 10 times better.
Come on.
I am going to sound crazy, but I want to pray for him, and I want to get that out. I want to get it out. If I saw him today, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't want to hurt him. I would want to pray over him. So I probably won't ever see him. So I just want to know if it's okay if I do that here.
100%.
Okay. Lord, I just pray specifically for my step-grandpa. I pray that the trauma that he faced in his childhood, that gets healed. I pray that you set him free from the guilt and the shame and the heartache that he feels. Lord, I pray that you show him that he's not what he's making himself to be. I pray that you help him guide through this tough time, because I know as hard as it hurts me, it hurts him. I just pray that you set your hand on him, and I pray that you're there with him and that you help save him from this sickness. And I pray that he never does it again, Lord. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So if you wonder, how could someone forgive someone who did something like this? It's really hard for me. I want to lay hands on him, but sometimes in the wrong way. But I realize this, that's not what Jesus did. He forgave those who nailed him to a cross. And it's important that we set boundaries up. He will never be around my grandchild.
Never.
Ever. I know that. But we can forgive him and release him. And by Kayla doing that, when you choose to forgive someone, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for you. But in the same way, you're giving compassion like God gave to you. The God of all comfort comforted Kayla through this to a place that she's willing to pray for her step-granddad who violated her from a little girl to a little girl. There's no way she was a little girl the whole time. But the Christ in her is shining bright, and I hope that it gives you hope. So I want my granddaughter to say goodbye to you.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening to the Unbridled Life Podcast. We know your time is valuable, and we hope we bring real and relevant content that helps you live that unbridled life. If you want to help us spread the message, you can rate or review the podcast on whatever platform you like to listen to us and share it with a friend or two. If you want to know more about who we are and what we're doing, head on over to theunbridledlifepodcast.com and learn more.